Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag. I'm Jared Johnson, and this week Texas Tech takes on Arizona in Tucson. 10 p.m. Central Time is the kickoff, and the game will be televised on Fox. I received several really good questions. This is actually compiled over the past 2 weeks for this edition of the Mailbag, so I'm going to dive right into these questions. Nas Raider says, 5 games into the season, 4 home games. In my opinion, what are the biggest surprises, good and bad, that I've observed thus far? Well, I'll go one on each side of the ball. I'll say, starting off positively, the offensive line's been a little better than I was expecting. I think it hadn't been. I'm definitely not going to say like very good. I don't know if I'm willing to say it's like a good offensive line, because they're still shuffling things around to get the best combination, but for a reason. But, I mean, you can't argue with the results. It's been a very balanced offense. Though Taj Brooks still has to break a lot of tackles, he does. They're a top 15 offense, and by many metrics, averaging over 40 points a game. I believe it's 41.5 points a game, almost halfway through the season. The offensive line hadn't given up a lot of sacks. Baron Morton, knock on wood, has started every game this year, and he's been very efficient, I think, in part because the offensive line's been pretty good in pass protection. So I think the offensive line has surprised me in how effective it's been in terms of the offense overall. Yeah, tip the cap, and I know this is controversial, but I think Zach Kittley's done a good job of keeping defenses off balance, whether it be, like having to sell out to stop the run, and then Texas Tech doing a good job in the passing game, working off of that. So, and I think taking that even further, what's been the most impressive to me is like all those things that if you watch my channel or if you read my stuff on Inside the Red Raiders, I've talked about that a lot, and not just me, but a bunch of people, because that is where everything starts on offense. But on third and medium to long, Texas Tech has been really good. They're, I think, in the top 10 or top 15 for sure in terms of third down conversion percentage, which is great. It's like 53%. That's a great mark in third down conversion overall. But there have been several times, and I even asked Coach Kittley about that on Monday, that on 3rd and 6 or longer, third and medium and long, obvious passing down, Baron Morton and Josh Kelly have been a great connection. They've moved the chains a lot in some really important stretches in second halves of the last 2 games in Big 12 play. So the offensive line, they have to do their job. Now, some of that is Baron Morton still doing his thing, but there's a situation where it's an obvious passing down. The defense, gets to pin its ears back, or oftentimes blitz, or try and do a lot of, more exotic things. And oftentimes the offensive line's holding up. So that's been a good surprise for me. Defensively, the lack of a pass rush. Texas Tech, whether it's because of the secondary or the guys just not getting home, not doing a good job rushing the passer in general, or everything combined, I really thought Texas Tech was going to be more of a factor in terms of generating sacks. So they have generated turnovers, which has been good. They needed those. They're pretty high up there. They're in the top third of the country in terms of generating turnovers. But I think that could be even higher if they did a better job. Obviously, just in terms of overall defense, if they did a better job rushing the passer, got more sacks, affected the quarterback more. So I asked Coach McGuire about that on Monday, and he said it was both. Just that the secondary is not doing a good enough job of covering for long enough in order for those guys to get home, but then also those guys haven't really been used like rushing the passer, as he likes to call it, in terms of using real pass rush moves. It's been more just all bull rushes. So that's been the negative surprise. But then again, the positive was the offensive line, which I'm really happy to say. Saddle Tramp says, what's your opinion on the opinions discussed in the Micah Hudson thread? Any fear Texas Tech loses in the portal? I read through that, and honestly, my eyes kind of glazed over, just because it's the same people saying the same things, if that makes sense. There's even another thread about it. And here's my overall takeaway about the lack of playing time for Micah Hudson. First off, I completely understand why fans want to see him. I mean, you can't tell a fan base, hey, this is the highest rated guy Tech's ever signed. Definitely the modern era, perhaps ever. He's this generational talent. He's amazing, and he's gonna play a lot, and then he doesn't play a lot, and expect fans just to eat it and take it. So I get it. I get why fans want to see him, but I get the coach's perspective in terms of who you're going to take off the field. These guys are playing at such a high level. They played in a lot of close games, whether it be Caleb Douglas, who caught the game-winning touchdown versus ACU, for example, and is one of your better blocking receivers. Now he misses blocks, he's dropped passes, so I get why some people would like to see Micah, get some more snaps there. Coy Aiken's been great. I think he leads the team in touchdowns with 5. He had 2 just last week. And then Josh Kelly is one of your absolute best players on the team. So those guys are playing a lot, and they're playing a lot for a reason. I think it could be more nuanced. I think you could play those guys most of the game, and Micah can be worked in there. But then again, what if a play here or play there costs Tech? But then again, if he really is that talented, if he is that good, then maybe he can make a big play that the other guy, doesn't make. So, I mean, I definitely get the back and forth. Now, in terms of fear of losing him, that sounds like a combination of an inferiority complex by Texas Tech fans, just quite honestly, but also just an inferiority complex of all fans in college football in general, understandably, because of the nature of the game right now with the transfer portal, NIL, and all that. But Micah is part of the Patrick Mahomes NIL deal, the landmark deal through Adidas and all that. His father-in-law, his stepdad also was a player here, so he's a legacy. I think he's had a great attitude from everything I've heard. I don't think it's just coach speak or PR. He wants to play. He's a player, So, of course, he's not going to be happy with not playing, but I have seen no indication that he's going to leave because of the lack of playing time through the first 5 games. I also think that lack of play time, I think it's been said, but I don't know if people care to hear it or not, but he did miss spring. He did miss, I think, a lot of summer in terms of what all he could do, rehabbing from that injury, that knee scope. And, he was a little behind, even as a true freshman. So I think if you want to play a lot as a true freshman, in most cases, not all cases, there are exceptions, and he is an exceptional athlete, but you need to be here in the spring and enroll early as a true freshman. But I hope to see Micah. I hope he makes an impact. I'm not nervous about him leaving necessarily, but I mean, who knows nowadays? Bobby09677 says, it seems like Caden Carr has been passed up on the depth chart. Any insight? Well, I know he's been working at center a lot. They like him at center. Sheridan Wilson was kind of a surprise this offseason in terms of like him taking a leap forward. He's a young player as a sophomore, and was a good player in his own right. I believe at Argyle. I think that's where he went to high school. I believe I saw him play back in the day, but I don't. There's a guy, Caleb Rodkey, I think, has been listed in the 2 deep. It's at center, but Caden Carr is an interior offensive lineman. I think there's a bright future for him. I've heard good things from several coaches about him. Very nasty, physical kind of dude, which, hey, I'm all for that. He's a big dude. So I expect in the future to see Caden Carr, not just in the 2 deep, but probably start and play a lot. Now, what is that, a year away, 2 years away? I don't know. Does he stick around, just like we were talking about Mike, or go in the transfer portal? I don't know. And, was an Amarillo guy who went to Cooper, so maybe that matters to him. Maybe it doesn't. I think he's in the mix as one of those young guys the last two or three classes that has a bright future if he sticks around. From Syntex says, what is the temperature of Kitley's seat right now? Still on fire, hot, room temperature, or cold? We from Syntex asked this last week prior to the Cincinnati game. I posted I couldn't help myself because, look, I've complained about Kitley's play calling, I think most notably after the West Virginia game. That just really irked me that they used Tosh to get all the way down the field on that final drive. And then, I think they threw 4 times and there were 4 completions. And while philosophically they were right and that those plays were open. I just feel like if you have a guy like Taj, keep hammering him and win the game in such a critical moment. But I think Kitley has adapted. I think he's been great this year. After the game last week, I posted a thread. Kitley called a great game tonight. I posted a GIF, like basically come at me, and it was like a 9-10 page thread because people have a lot of opinions on it. I think there are high standards. There are high standards in terms of offense at Texas Tech, and understandably so. Mike Leach and what's followed. I mean, you had one of the most what's the right word? Influential offensive minds in college football, if not all of football, coach and make a big impact here at Texas Tech in Mike Leach. And you had arguably a generational talent at quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, not to mention so many other good quarterbacks. But that's just in the last, 25 years or so, 20 years. So high standards of offense at Texas Tech. But when you look at it, Tech is very balanced. They've been running the ball. They've been setting the tone with Taj. They've been very efficient in passing. I mean, again, they're in the top 15, 20 of most major offensive categories. And really, you take the game out of the Washington State game, which you can do. It counts. But if you take that game out where they didn't have Taj, one of the best players in the country, then they've been phenomenal. Now, I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but that also was your only road game so far. So from what I've heard, what I believe, what I think it should be, his seat isn't hot right now. I think if anybody's seat would be hot, and I don't think it's hot, I would say it's room temperature, would be Tim DeRuyter. And he's he's a very good, accomplished defensive coordinator, and I hope he stays here as long as he wants to. Just like anything else, I don't always agree with what they do, or what he calls, but I can at least understand the thinking. That's not what you asked. So to answer your question, no, Zach Kitley's seat is not hot right now. The offense is operating at a very high level. If you take your fandom out of it and just look at Texas Tech's offense, it's very scary. If you look at it from a defensive coordinator's, like an opposing defensive coordinator's perspective, I would be like, dang, this is going to be a challenge because what do you stop? They have a plethora of receivers. Josh Kelly's always open. You have one of the absolute best players, not just running backs in the country, and Taj Brooks. And Baron Morton, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions so far in the season, has been very efficient. And now he's shown an ability to run, which leads me to my next question. Tech Freak says, Morton hasn't run much this season. He did more this last game. Do you think that has been an emphasis in order to keep him healthy? And do we think he'll run more the deeper we get into the season? Well, that's a layered question. You asked me a couple of questions, and those are good questions. Yes, huge emphasis on Baron Morton this offseason to protect himself. That when he does run, how to slide. He's not very good at sliding yet because I don't think that's his nature. But also throwing the ball out of bounds, working within the pocket so that he can be protected, which we actually saw that. I thought he did a great job last week on a couple of big plays where he moved in the pocket and still completed a pass down the throw where he kind of, instead of getting out and rolling on the perimeter, he navigated within the pocket when Cincinnati blitzed. I thought he did a great job. And the offensive line, again, going back to them, has been better. Not great, but better. But he did rip off a couple of runs. And they were big runs, big gains, because the defense is like, we don't have to worry about him. He's not going to run. He's worried about getting hurt. He's not going to run. Well, it was so wide open because defenses are geared to stop Taj, and then any kind of play action or RPO game off of that with the receivers, defenses have their hands so full that there is definitely an ability. I think it'll be open later in the season, right now, moving forward in the season, for him to run some and not get hit. I think that's the key, is if he could get out of bounds. I think the best player I think I've ever seen at this is Kyler Murray. I mean, he went through his whole high school career. I don't know how many yards he rushed for. I mean, some critical moments in games, whether it be design runs or he just scored it out of the pocket when nothing was open and moved the chains, where he was like never hit. He'd always get out of bounds. So Barron's got to be really aware of that if those big plays are there when defenses are just totally neglecting your ability to run, then he can still go get those plays without taking contact, get down, get out of bounds, or something like that, and be a factor. So there is an emphasis on him not getting hit and staying healthy because it's that important. But also, he's still got to protect himself. All right, final question comes from J Brew 830, who says, if you could build a time machine, I love this question. If you could build a time machine and take one former Red Raider from the past and put him on this year's team, who would you pick? Well, you got to think, Mahomes, generational quarterback, one of the best players in football history. I think you could already say that, even though he's still, alive and left to be written. But you're getting really good play at the quarterback position and on offense in general. So I'm going to go ahead and set him to the side, even though that would seem kind of like an obvious. You got Zach Thomas, who I saw play, and tackling machine, NFL Hall of Famer, wonderful player, great in college, knack for making the big play, just like when you have to have it on defense. Of course, that huge pick six against A&M comes to mind, but that wasn't the only thing. You put him in the middle of this defense, and your defense is better. Let's just face it. It's going to be better. And then you mentioned Senior Sack. Of course, Gabe Rivera, I think on the defensive line, you're getting a lot more pressure on quarterbacks. And your defense is going to be better if you have Gabe Rivera. So that's it. I'm going to go a different route, though, because you don't really have that high-impact guy in the secondary right now. I think you got Ben Roberts right now, who I think is, what a phenomenal game he had last week. Double-digit tackles, a couple tackles for loss, a sack. QB hurry that led to a pick six, a forced fumble that was a big turnover in the game. So Ben Roberts is playing at a high level. You have some pretty good inside linebackers. Not great, not Zach Thomas level, but pretty good. Defensive line, you're not generating a lot of pressure, but you're doing good in the run game or against opposing rushing attacks. And there's some pretty good players. Like one guy who low-key is having a really good year is Duda Banks. Marion Banks is playing really well. While Gabe Rivera will be amazing, I'm going to go with Dwayne Slay. And I know this is a hypothetical because I don't know if he could even play like he did and not get ejected for half the games. But let's go hypothetical. He's not getting ejected. He's forcing a lot of fumbles. Opposing receivers are terrified of him. And you have that high-impact player in the secondary, which you just don't have right now. I think that your whole team becomes appreciably better. So even though you listed great candidates and any of them would be amazing, I think maybe it's just my bias of seeing him play, not necessarily the most, because really it was just a year. But Dwayne Slay would make, I think, out of all those guys, I don't know about the most impact, but he would make a great impact in a position group that is young and has been decimated by injuries right now. So that's who I go with. But, great questions from everybody inside the Red Raiders this week. Like I said, big game against Arizona. Red Raiders looking to win their 4th straight late night, Saturday night. Can't wait for it. Thank you for watching. And until next time.